how set do you think Josh Heupel is on his starting roster when Tennessee rolls the ball out there against Syracuse? Because I think Josh Heupel gets set in his ways sometimes to a fault. You?
I think Josh Heupel has been set on his starting roster since before the college football playoff ended, since before Tennessee lost to Ohio State. I'm dead serious. Actually, yeah, since the early signing period, since he inked up his early signing class. I'll go a little further, actually. I take that back. Josh Heupel's been set on his roster since the transfer portal window of the winter closed. Honestly.
Okay. Let me ask you about individual positions. Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. 50 years in East Tennessee. Here we go.
Where do you stand? Hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. Cityheatandair.com. On Off the Hook Sports.
All right, so Jack starts us off. Offensive line starters are set. Hot or cold on that notion, Caleb?
I think 80% of his offensive line starters are set.
So why don't you just say 4 out of 5?
Yeah, 4 out of 5. I know I should. But okay, so I think Sam Pendleton, he knows is going to start. I think William Satterwhite's locked in. Lance Hurd is locked in. And I do think David Sanders is locked in. I'm sorry, he's locked in at right tackle. Josh Heupel's going to do everything to make him work.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I don't think David Sanders is locked in. I understand that Josh Heupel in the past has pushed probably guys out there, Joe Milton, for instance, that he thought were ready but probably weren't. I don't think you can do that on the offensive line. I think David Sanders. So I think there's 4 out of 5 set. I think Mo's set at right guard. I think Pendleton will be left guard. Satterwhite, no question, center. But at right tackle, I'm not so sure that Larry Johnson wouldn't hold on to that position, or they might do something else, because it's my nature. It just doesn't sound right, a freshman starting in the SEC, right? It doesn't sound right on the offensive line.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But I think Heupel's going to do everything to make it work. Now, remember, right tackle is one of the easier positions to learn in Josh Heupel's offense. It's the guards that have the harder job, honestly. But I think tackles, you can do a little bit of plug and play, Dave, honestly, in Josh Heupel's offense.
Yep. Jack says the money you're paying Sanders, he has to be out there. I agree. I mean, I think he'll be out there, but I'm not sure it's day one. And I think of an 18-year-old playing a man's game, and it's just hard for me to quantify that. I agree that Travis says the players think Sanders is locked in. I'm not arguing with all signs point to Dave being wrong, but it just, to me, seems weird to have a true freshman out there at such an important, tough physical position. But I tell you what, from watching Sanders in practice, I'm pretty impressed with his physicality. Now, the running back position, hot or cold? Are they set there?
They're set. I'm hot. I'm hot on the running back position.
Well, then what is it?
It's Peyton Lewis is the starter, and I've decided Deshaun Bishop is going to be the change of pace back. Again, it's going to be Peyton Lewis.
Sure that Deshaun Bishop wouldn't be the starter.
Yes. I've read and heard sources that they wanted Peyton Lewis to work out last year. He just was hurt early. So I think Heupel is all in on Peyton Lewis. When Dylan Sampson went down against Ohio State, they played Peyton Lewis more than Deshaun Bishop, if I'm not mistaken, in that game. So
yeah, I'm cold on that. I don't think they know, and I'm not completely ruling out Star Thomas either, because he's a physical back. Deshaun Bishop is running back number 1. The thing about Peyton Lewis that's scary to me is that he's suffered an awful lot of injuries to just be a sophomore in college. That's scary to me. Is he going to hold up physically? Deshaun Bishop, running back number 1, another vote from Travis, Bishop number 1. He's a local good story, but is he going to be able to hold up the entire season? I don't think so.
No, he can't be the full-time starter. I still maintain. Now, Brew McCoy says he can. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think so. You know what? I noticed a lot of Tennessee fans, because he's a local kid, rooting for it. You know what it reminds me of, Dave? Is I'm a hardcore Memphis Grizzly fan, and if you listen to Memphis radio, hey, we're doing pretty well right now.
Yes,
but if you listen to Memphis radio, they always want them to draft former Tigers. Always, always, always. They're like, oh, please. They need, like, there was one year, like, they need to draft Antonio Burks to have him as the backup point guard. It's like, if you ever let people in Memphis, like Tiger fans, be the GM of the Grizzlies, it'd be horrible. But yeah, I think people want to see Deshaun Bishop work out because he's a local kid, but I think he's just a change of pace guy more than anything. He was a walk-on. And by the way, that's not a diss on Knoxville. Knox County has got some low-key, some of the most underrated football talent in the country. Those kids almost always work out.
Okay, hot or cold, he's set on Matthews, Brazel, Staley, top 3 receivers.
Oh, he's set on his top 3, but it's not that.
Oh, okay, who you got? Oh, you're going to say
it's
Boo.
Matthews, Brazel, Boo Carter. It's Matthews, Brazel, Boo Carter. I'm telling you, it's Boo Carter.
Caleb, you don't really believe that, do you?
Boo's his boo.
Okay, that's not. Yep,
it's Boo Carter. I am telling you, it is Boo Carter is going to be the starting slot receiver. And should we make a bet on how many catches Boo Carter is going to have?
I'll put the over under at 19.5, and I'll bet any amount of money you want to put on it, and that'll be brought to you.
Loser has to do the show shirtless.
I don't mind doing that. I got pecs. Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. My pecs brought to you by cityheatandair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
You know, I covered Travis Stevens, so I'm going to learn from my mistakes because I didn't think Travis Stevens could have a successful season. David said it. I'm on board. David, Deshaun Bishop will be Tennessee's leading rusher and not Peyton Lewis this year. And I'm changing my mind right here live on the show.
Whatever. I actually can't. Look, I've lightened up a little bit because of what Brew McCoy said, but Dave, there's one big difference. Travis Stevens did have amazing vision. We agree with that, right? And have you ever seen somebody recognize the hole faster than Travis Stevens?
No, I think he was fantastic.
The other part, and this is something Bishop doesn't have, Travis Stevens' breakaway speed was incredible. I mean, you weren't catching him if he got into the secondary, honestly. And he was very fast. He wasn't big enough for the NFL, but he was very, very fast. No, Deshaun Bishop's not going to be Travis Stevens, guys. I'm sorry.
Now, if Boo Carter was getting back to Boo, if he was 100% offense, I would totally agree with you. He's your starting slot receiver, and he's going to be fantastic. But they need him on defense, brought up in our message board. Boo will get packages, not start. Tim Banks won't have it. Yeah, I mean, think of the dominoes that you could start to drop if you tell Tim Banks, taking your best player, it might be Aaron Carter, but right up there, top 3 players, Boo Carter, and putting him extensively on offense, and you lose him on defense. Then Tim Banks might say, why don't you stick it? I'm going to go be a defensive coordinator somewhere else.
Tim Banks knew what he signed up for when he became Josh Heupel's defensive coordinator. They prioritize offense in practice. We know that. I mean, that's just how things work. So Tim Banks isn't fighting with Joey Halzle. If this was Tim Banks versus Joey Halzle, Tim Banks is winning. But Tim Banks has to fight with Josh Heupel. That's the biggest difference. And the head coach is always going to win out over the coordinator.
I don't know what they're doing with Joey Halzle. I just got to be honest. I just don't know what he brings to the table, and trotting him out there to answer questions about Nico's leadership the other day was just bizarro to me. I mean, that question needs to go to Josh Heupel, right?
It does. But we know you hate Joey Halzle, Dave.
I don't hate Joey Halzle, but Josh Heupel also, but he wouldn't say anything. So I guess it's good that Halzle at least
would you rather have Joey Halzle as your offensive coordinator or Joe Milton as your quarterback? Those are the two those are the two people you hated the most at Tennessee.
I hate Joe Milton. Wow, that's a good question. I guess I thought from the get that Joe Milton had a slow release and that he was a little bit too mechanical, so to speak. So I didn't think he was ever going to be very good. Joey Halzle, I could see, Dave Clawson turned into a very good coach because he got rid of that flip-flop in the offensive line thing. So I could see Joey Halsley turning into a very good coach one day. I just don't know that he brings a lot to the table now.
I could see that. For the record, Dave Carlson was actually a good coach before. He just had to learn how to coach at this level, and he was smart, so he adjusted.
And David said, I watched Peyton Lewis, who has similar size to Jabari Davis, and that is who he reminds me of. If he's, no offense to Jabari, but if he's just Jabari, then that's a disappointment.
That's a massive disappointment. Jabari Davis had the worst breakaway speed I think of any. He should have become a tight end, honestly.
Well, he was a big physical tailback who didn't like contact.
Yeah,
that's
right.
awful.
My favorite is when he scored a touchdown against Florida at the game you talk about. There was a giant hole, and he dives over into the end zone. It's like, bro, you didn't have to dive. You could have just walked in. Like, there was a clear hole for you to score, but he dove into the end zone.
He was tired. It had been a long, long run for him. Let's get to this day. Yes, let's get to this day in Tennessee football history. I remember when he showed up and they ran in shells. You know what shells are? They're like not full pads and not even shoulder pads, but just shells. And they would do basically nothing for the high school football day when they would have high school coaches in to watch practice, and then they'd have like Mike Tomlin or somebody speak to them. And I remember talking to some high school coaches I know, and they go, let me tell you about that Jabari Davis. That's going to be the best tailback that ever played here. Because I'm telling you what, when there was no contact, he looked like Bo Jackson. And you were like, oh my gosh, this guy's special. And then he didn't really like contact. Can you remember him trucking anybody as big as he was? Did he ever truck anybody?
No. And as a matter of fact, after he played significantly his sophomore and junior years because Cedric Houston got hurt both years. But remember his senior year, it was all Houston and Gerald Riggs. They barely played him his senior year.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Just didn't like contact.